businesses fail for two reasons. You get underwater financially, or the leadership gives up. That's it. Because if you don't get underwater financially, you can ebb and flow and grow and shrink. Just don't get underwater financially. Don't take out loans. Don't raise too much money. Don't sign a massive lease you can't afford, and you'll be fine. And then it's just about having it flowing. And then again, so it's all about basically a business, as long as you don't screw up the finances, it's just about not burning out, and longevity, you win.
Welcome back to the Legacy Advisors podcast, where we talk to elite founders, operators, and deal makers about what it really takes to build, scale, and exit a company on your terms. I'm your host, Chris Jones, and today, Ed Button is not available because he's on vacation. Today's episode is going to move fast because my guest runs at a different gear than most. Joining me is Erik Huberman, the founder and CEO of Hawke Media, a $150 million plus marketing powerhouse that's helped scale over 5,000 brands and is redefining the agency model as we know it. From launching Hawke Ventures and Hawke Capital to developing Hawke AI, Erik's building an entire ecosystem around growth, capital, and performance. And make no mistake, he's not just building it, he's buying it. He's actively rolling up digital marketing agencies across the United States and creating what many believe will be the next great performance marketing holding company. But Erik's story isn't just about strategy and evaluation. It's about vision, hustle, reinvention, and the emotional roller coaster that comes with being a founder at scale. In this interview, we're going to talk about the keys to growing an agency beyond the services trap, what Erik looks for when acquiring other agencies, and what instantly kills a deal, how he thinks about roll-ups, private equity, and the future of holding companies, and the real emotional clap or anything. Robin?
No, I'm all time code now, so yeah.
All right, awesome. Erik, welcome to the Legacy Advisors podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You got it, man. So, this has been one of the interviews that I've been looking forward to. We had to reschedule it. I know you're incredibly busy. One of the reasons I was looking forward to it is because I've really always admired how you've been able to stand out in the broader marketing industry. For our listeners and viewers, can you tell us a little bit more about your company, Hawke Media?
Sure. Hawke Media's outsourced CMO and marketing team to about 500 different brands currently. So we go into companies, identify where the holes are in their marketing strategy, and then spin up what they need, when they need it, and then ebb and flow as the needs change. So it could be a Facebook marketer, an email marketer, a web designer, a fractional CMO, et cetera. Been around 12 years, about 250 full-time people, have worked with about 6,000 brands total over the past dozen years.
So one of the things I think that makes you interesting, Hawke Media interesting, is that you're one of the larger agencies that are still private. Can you share a little bit more about when you started to build the company for scale? So what did you do? Did you raise, private equity? How did you do it? Give us the story.
Oh no, you said it. We're private. We haven't raised any money. So I still own the thing
so
with
there's
my
no
partner.
private equity involved?
No.
Wow, incredible.
So no, we built it off itself. There wasn't like a point where we decided to scale it. It was just, we grew every year. And, it was just every year we would look at, okay, what are we doing? What's the next step of the company? What's the next phase? And how do we get there? And I'd say the early days was a little more of keeping up. And then more recently it was a little more of a push. And now we're probably getting back to keeping up again. There's just different phases. I'd say, growth is more of a staircase than a line. And so you shoot up and then you flatline, then you shoot up. And so that's what we've noticed is you kind of hit these growth inflections as you're continuing to try to find things that will help you grow. And I feel like we're always in that phase of like, we may be benefiting from some decisions we made a couple of years ago that are driving growth, but we're still trying to find what's that next phase. How do we get to that next level kind of thing?
So one of the things that you've done is you've scaled up through acquisition. So can you share a little bit more about, since you've done it all on apparently cash flow or future cash flow, you've been able to scale up. If I'm not mistaken, I've read publicly that your annual reoccurring revenue is north of $100 million. So how do you get that level of scale?
Ambition. It's going for it. I mean, I that's so we have a venture fund too. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got from an investing standpoint is invest in the ambition of the founder. I think it's one of those things. If you're comfortable at 10 million, your business is going to do 10 million. If you're comfortable at 20, you're going to do 20. If you're not comfortable, you get these outliers that never are satisfied, and they're not doing it because they get to pay their mortgage or they're paying a bill or they're buying a car. They're doing it because they want to win. And that's when you get these breakouts. And I don't know what chip was put on my shoulder. Actually, I think I have some idea, but I just am not satisfied. Like it's literally the first year I started Hawke was the last year I ever worried about my personal expenses. And still, for some reason, I've pushed it bigger and bigger and bigger every year and worked harder and harder and harder. It hasn't gotten easier. And it's because I want to build something great. And there's something innate in that. It's not about the outcome. It's not about the sale. It's not about the fundraise. It's about really building something world class that, and it's not even about the legacy. I don't really have like this need to know that like when I die, people will remember it for X. It's actually just, I feel like I'm playing a game and I want to win. I want the top score. That's it. It's not because my name's going to be read on the arcade machine. It's because I want to know that I got the top score for myself.
Dude, that's brilliant. And I want to really commend you, because I think often when we're building and scaling things, we get somewhat attracted to the shiny object or the, whatever at that time is trending. So let's peel back the onion a little bit. At what point did you realize that Hawke Media was more than just an agency? It was more of a platform. You've already mentioned this idea of having a VC portion of your company. Give us a little bit more narrative on how you went from agency to really like a platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like most entrepreneurs, I've had the problems of ADD where it's like, oh, now that we run an agency, let's try starting a brand. And I've had two brands. I know what it takes. I've pretty much resisted that, but we've had times where we try to build something in house or use the platform to build this or start a nonprofit, do all these different things. And it really, over time, you realize like the things that work in synergy and the things that work in conflict. And so what works in synergy, for example, is our fund. That started with angel investing and doing really well as an angel investor and going, well, there's something here. We're coming across great deals all the time. And there's a way to build a thesis that allows us to make a lot of money as an investor, but also benefit Hawke Media, which became investing in marketing tech and e-commerce tech and all the tools you're using. Because in diligence, we can quickly see, is this a tool we want to use? Is this something we believe in? And if we do, why wouldn't we invest? We have more visibility into the market than just about anyone. So if we think a tool is great, it's a pretty good litmus test from a diligence perspective. So let's invest. And then once we invest, now we can onboard hundreds of clients to the platform and make the market for the company we invested in. And lo and behold, our funds have done incredibly well. And we announced today that we're launching our deal network, which is letting people, more of the general accredited investor public invest in deal by deal structure with us, as opposed to a 10-year fixed fund. So that's another example of like innovating off it, where we've had two dedicated funds, but I just, it was one of those watching how it worked. Like each one has about 40 LPs. A lot of them are my network. And you realize like 40 people with the tens of thousands of people I come across every day, and like all the people that I know that would definitely, that trust me and want to invest with us. We got 40 that wanted to invest in a fund. Like there's some friction here that is really challenging. And so why don't we open this up and see what that looks like? And like, we haven't even, like literally it's announcing today in the LA Business Journal, and we're announcing it on our socials. And we already have, just from like letting a few people know, I think 85 or 90 people signed up directly on the deal network, as well as another 1,000 or so investors that want to see our deals. So it's like, okay, so it's again, iterative kind of tweaks that 12 years later look like we have this master plan of, look at this platform we've built with our AI tool, with the venture, with all these portfolio companies, with all the ecosystem we built with Hawke. But it was just incremental decisions day by day, like, well, that's broken. Let's fix that. Let's change that. And thankfully, I constantly try to make it so that I don't have a day job at Hawke, which is crazy because I do work probably 70 plus hours a week, but I kind of try to offload as much as I can and replace myself, which means there are periods where I don't have a lot that I have to do, but that just means I'm going to go find stuff to do. And that's how we end up with these kind of innovations too.
Super cool. So you started to touch on a question that I wanted to kind of double click on with you. So if you've worked with, was it 5,000 plus brands, right? So you know a thing or two about how to scale the business. My question though is on how you internally have scaled it. How have you been able to sort of step back? You're still putting in 70 hours a week, but you're kind of living the dream, right? You are the dude, you are the brand, right? In terms of like it's just who you are and what you sell. So what are some of the things that you did to make sure that Hawke runs really well internally?
Yeah, it's never perfect, but hire great people that take things off my plate. And especially, like, this is a big one that I talk about a lot, is the stuff you really don't want to do. Hire people to do that, because the last thing you want to do is burn out. Like, you really don't want to end up in that place. So be able to punt stuff to other people that you really don't like doing, so you can kind of be in your zone of genius, because then you can drive. And thankfully, my sort of quote zone of genius is growth, sales, marketing, biz dev, innovation. So if I can find people that service clients, run our HR, accounting, legal, finance, and thankfully I'm a numbers guy too, so finance comes pretty natural too. But like, all the day-to-day stuff is what I don't like. I don't like tedium. I don't like uh, doing the same thing over and over again at all. I thrive in chaos. And so I getting people that balance that, and hiring the right team and people I can rely on and doing it the right way, that's a big one. And so that you get to, focus on the things you want to do.
Interesting. So you strive in chaos. Like sometimes like if there's like cacophony, like noise all over the place, I feel like they're some of my best moments of focus. Do you have any tips on how you're able to stay so focused?
And maybe in chaos, I want to be careful, because I think it could be used in a lot of different ways. I mean, constant momentum and forward movement and learning and like jumping into the unknown. I've never done this before. This is personal and professional. Like, I try to take on new hobbies pretty regularly, just because I'm like, I have no idea how this works. Like, I literally signed up I'm getting my license in armed security because I got into shooting a little bit. I was like, how can I take this to a level that's like way outside my comfort zone? And so I'm literally doing volunteer work there, because I wanted to learn it. I got my pilot's license, my captain's license, my scuba license. I did my first triathlon last year. And I highlight that because that's on a personal level, it's the same professionally, where it's like, I've already done all this. I don't want to do this anymore. What's next? And so that creates, for a lot of people, a really uncomfortable situation, because people don't like the unknown. And I'm the opposite. If I'm not dealing in the unknown, I'm fucking bored. I've already done this. I want to do something new. And so it's really nice, because it naturally, and I know that's the opposite of most people. So like, when a lot of people fear change, most people fear change. The whole AI innovation thing is terrifying to most people. And I consciously know that is a huge advantage to me, because I love this stuff. I've been reading about AI for 10 years and developing our own systems, so that when it came to this point, we were already ready, because I think it's exciting. And I also know consciously, because of that, I'm going to win in these crazy shifts, because I'm going to be the one that leans in and takes advantage of it, versus people that freeze up and stick to what they're doing and quote, stick their head in the sand. I'm like, perfect. They're going to fail. I'm going to win, and we're going to move forward. And so, but the cost of that is a bit of frenetic energy and a feeling of instability to people that don't like that. So culturally, it's really important to have people. And like, the biggest feedback I get when hiring executives from the other executives is, we want to see how they work with you, because they all are very blunt with, I'm a very particular type of person to work with. I'm very fair, I'm very rational, but I'm also constantly focused on where we can tweak things, change things. I'm like, yeah, we're doing 99% really well, but that 1% is all I care about.
So, you're one of call it a handful or two agencies that or platform agencies that are super aggressive on the buy side.
Mm-hmm.
You're scaling your agency through acquisition. What is your thesis? Like, what are you thinking there? Is it start with an angel investment and then you roll it into the how do you do it? How do you think about it?
There's no dating. It's getting married. Like, we do our diligence, and then we go in or not. There's no investing. The thesis is, again, we live in this world where there's 90,000 digital agencies, and 99% of them are full of shit in some way. And I look at it and go, that's either a competitive landscape or an addressable market. So either I can take these businesses, find the diamonds in them, and find, out of all that 90,000, there's a lot of great ones too that just never get past the noise, never get past that sort of hump of I'm the head of like all those support systems I just mentioned that I've hired. An agency doing $2 million a year can't afford it. So they're the founders doing it all. And so how do I find someone that just wants to run through a wall, wishes they could, but can't get out from underwater, has built a great little business, and then I can give them my platform, partner up with them and scale something. And again, our ambition, being marketing world domination and being the go-to small and medium business agency, period. One of the best things we could do is find other partners that either attack an industry we're not in, a geography we're not in, have services we don't have, or even if they're fully synergistic and it's just some talented people, there's a lot of options of where it's a good fit. And what we really the archetype needs to be a founder that really wants to run through a wall and just can't get the ball and chain off of them. And that's where we see a ton of success. And it's gone really well. So now, as we go through these, we get better and better identifying what that person looks like and doing the right deals. So we purposely did a large volume of deals to kind of create that, similar to how you'd hire a bunch of salespeople and then start to hone in on what the right salesperson is. And so, or whatever position we're talking about, like what's the right personality fit, et cetera. We're now getting pretty close to that. And so, yeah, we've really honed in on what we like to acquire.
That's interesting because my follow-up, and I'm going to still ask it, but it's interesting because you kind of answered it there towards the tail end. But how, if, there's probably some agencies out there that are watching this right now and they're like, shit, how do I get Erik's attention? What would be the best way to go about getting on your radar from an M&A point of view?
Reach out. That we're, by nature, I'm accessible. That's the culture and mission of the company is to be accessible. So whether it's to our clients, acquisitions, et cetera, like you ping me on social media and say, hey, I'm interested in talking to you about acquiring my agency. I'll probably loop in my M&A team, but you'll have my lead gen. I'm not going to ignore you. Now, the things I ignore is, hey, I can help you with your lead gen. Do you have 5 minutes to talk about us sending you 20 qualified leads? That's the shit I can't stand. But you actually a real person are reaching out to connect on something, it's going to be with me, or I'm going to loop in the right person to get the initial conversations going.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right. So you're more of a platform than an agency. You have a venture arm, you have an AI arm. How do those things support your M&A strategy? Are you looking to? Yeah. I'm just curious on that one.
I would say both similarly in terms of the tech enablement and the ecosystem we've created for Hawke, then the people we acquire get right into that. So the efficiency created by all the technology is huge. So a lot of times we're acquiring companies that haven't been as tech enabled. Now we can bring all that tech to them and they can start to over deliver for the clients. And like all of a sudden their delivery and their productiveness goes through the roof and their clients just see all benefit. That's a big one. And then again, the ecosystem piece, we've had so many different types of investments and different things that when we get an agency like we bought an Amazon agency. Well, we've got a bunch of CPG brands we're partnered with. So now you go. And we've got a bunch of softwares that plug into Amazon. And now we have an Amazon agency. It's like, it's just the same way it benefits Hawke Media, it now benefits these agencies we're acquiring.
What, if you don't mind sharing, are there any specific targets, like size-wise, clients, verticals, anything you guys are interested in right now?
I'd say the sweet spot's probably 1 to 4 million revenue from a size net revenue. And we've done a little bigger. We can do bigger, but like in terms of like where it's just like we know that our deal structure and everything will probably resonate. Again, it's a very motivated, outward-facing business development desired founder. And then in the nuance comes in. Then there's not really a bucket. It's like now it depends on what they're doing, what their services are. Their gross margins matter a lot too. We have agencies that like are way undercharging or way over delivering, and to change that's really tough. So if your gross margins are like 10 or 20%, like you are scraping by with no excess capital, that's probably going to be really tough. And we got to see if there's a path. Over 50% we can probably work with. Ours are like 65, 70. So.
Got it. All right. So back to the personal side real quick. I can't remember if we were talking about this before we started to record, but you're self-described intense. You're an intense guy, right? Where does that energy, that passion, what wakes you up in the morning and says, you know what? Today is going to be that kind of day. Is there any influences or any go-tos that you look to philosophically or mentor wise?
I think it was my upbringing. I mean, I had a very ambitious, successful dad that did well as I grew up. And I was the oldest. He was so scared I'd be a spoiled rich kid. It was more, he would remind me that I get fucking nothing and it's his money. And so I think there was that's why I said I probably know where that chip came from. And I think and then once I got into it, I also, frankly, I was a competitive video game player, like middle school, high school, college, and during a time where it was not a cool thing to do and it did not make any money. But I think that I just like somehow wired my brain for that gamification, that like the idea of progress and leveling up became such an innate thing for me that I still feel like, again, I look at my hobbies and all this stuff, I feel like I'm picking up, the way they joke about it on Instagram and stuff now. Like I have side quests and all these things that I'm doing where it's like it almost feels like a video game. And even my wife comments on it sometimes where it's like I've had super stressful periods in the business where the funny thing is I've made enough money, we're good. Like our life's great, that's not an issue. And still I was beside myself because I'm not progressing like I want to. And vice versa, we'll be progressing and doing everything great. Might not actually affect anything rationally, but I feel that feeling of progress and forward momentum, and I'm doing great. So like when I feel like I'm leveling up and improving, and so there's a drive there that like the moment I see something not improving, I get, anxious might not be the word, but something in me is just like, I can't just let that sit. We got to fucking fix that. And that goes back to what I said about, I think the intensity comes from, right now we're having our third great month in a row from a sales perspective. Like we weren't doing horrible, but we've had May, June, and now July have been really good. And I go sit down with our head of growth and I go right to, here are the 5 things that aren't doing well. Even though the overall picture is great, I don't talk about like, oh, great job, we're doing this and that, let's celebrate. No, these are the things we need to fucking fix. This thing's not good, this thing's not good. And he's been with me 8 years, he's used to it. But that's just my nature. And I know that, I'm self-aware about it, but I'm like, do I want to change that? Because that hyper focus into what needs improvement is what causes us to constantly improve. If I start to rest on my laurels and go, no, we're doing great. Well, yeah, then we're done. We've made it. And I haven't made it. I have a long way I want to go.
Dude, that's so interesting. I think a lot of people that are driven like you, like myself, like others will be like, yeah, dude is spot on 100%. But a lot of other people, will look at someone like yourself and say, wow, this guy really has it figured out. So one of the things.
Well, I was going to say, I think the majority of people would be like, oh, it sounds like you're a workaholic and a miserable fuck. That's what I think most people would say. And I think there's a debate to be had there. I mean, there's a stat that I've stuck on. I'm going to try to go through it really quick because I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's, would you rather work 25 hours a week and make 125 grand a year, or work 70 hours a week and make 300 grand a year? So just to be clear, it's about $80 an hour for the 70 hours a week or $90 an hour for the 25. But obviously the real number is a lot bigger when you're working that much more. What percentage of people do you think would rather work 25 hours a week?
Is it split or what is it? Split down the middle?
I thought it'd be 70. Just again, I thought, no, most people don't want to work as hard. So like they'll take the decent pay, but work 70 or 70% of them. 98.2% of people would rather work 25 hours a week. And I get the arguments. I understand why. And every founder I talk to is like, no brainer, 70. What? And it's like, that's the difference. And what I think is important to know is that's like 1% to 2% of people. So I know that and when I have actually said this on a podcast before and the clip went viral and the hate mail I got about like, oh, so life doesn't matter. Like, you fucking idiot. Like, if people are angry that I would rather work that, but that's something to be conscious of too.
So interesting. I mean, there is definitely an ethos in the Silicon Valley about, the need to put in the hours. Not that I would have probably been, in the 97% club of people who want to work less. The thing that resonates with me from what you said is this idea of gamification. However, before I ask you a final question or two, I do want, though, to see if I could get you to be vulnerable and
Sure.
and chat with me about this emotional roller coaster of success.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people for how they could have, an attitude such that, hey, listen, it's all a game. I'm just going to do my best. Failures will come and go. But do you have any words of wisdom on helping people, build up that mental muscle?
Yeah, I'll try to make a long story short, but it was about 3 years ago a little more than 3 years ago, was the first and only time, or first time I really dealt with anxiety to the point that I was like, I don't know what this feeling is, but it sucks. And I'm explaining it to my wife, and she goes, "You mean you're anxious?" Like, yes. She's like, "You've never had anxiety? What the fuck is wrong with you?" And what I realize is the brain's a muscle like anything else. I'm going to use some cliches here, but it's true. And there's a forcing function of teaching yourself to look at the positive and remain optimistic that is critical to building a business. Because if you're a pessimist, you wouldn't even have started, because it would have never worked out, because you can find all the reasons why it's going to fail. And you're definitely not going to keep going. And if you keep going, you're going to be forcing it, and you're going to be shaking because you know all the things that can go bad. And that's what you're going to focus on versus, all the things that could go well. I thought it was in here. I have a picture my friend gave me that was like about like, if you jump, what if you fall? And the other person goes, yeah, but what if you fly? So it's like just that perspective thing is so critical. And then I would say like some practical stuff, keep your expenses really low until always in relatively like, I know that like I've got enough in the bank to cover my mortgage for like 30 years. Like I like when things are ebbing and flowing at work and when things are getting scary, there's never a point where I'm like existential about it practically existential. The emotion still hits you. Your business struggling still hits you emotionally, but when you can take a breath, go to sleep, and know that you're going to be okay, and you have a chance to figure it out. I think that's a really critical one. Is like all these people. I don't know why people think that like buying a fucking Ferrari is like a sign of wealth. I literally don't have an employee at Hawke that makes less than a Ferrari costs, and I have over 200 of them. So I'm always like, and by the way, I am a car guy. I like racing cars. I'm all about it, but the whole flashing wealth thing, I'm like, this is stupid. The only nice thing about were personal reminders, but not to like impress anyone else. And that's where I think people get into trouble. And so, again, I'd say that that's part of the core. The other piece is kind of what I said earlier. Make sure you're building the business you want to build and you're in the position you want to be in as much as possible. Not everything's always going to be great. You're going to have to deal with shit. It's part of it. But the day to day, the general gist is positive, and you focus on that. You don't dwell on the negative. You go, that's shit I got to deal with, but it's because I get to do all this. And telling yourself enough that things are great and you get to do this, and that gratitude thing people talk about, you're going to it's going to be forced at first if you're not used to it, and then it becomes natural, and that's where your brain automatically goes to. And that's something I've seen over the years when I've accidentally become kind of negative and fallen into that, and then been like, fuck, this is a miserable way to live. I'm just going to remind myself how lucky I am all the time, and then you naturally do it, and you're just happier and lighter, and you make better decisions. And the last piece of that is businesses fail for two reasons: you get underwater financially, or the leadership gives up. That's it. Because if you don't get underwater financially, you can ebb and flow and grow and shrink. Just don't get underwater financially. Don't take out loans. Don't raise too much money. Don't sign a massive lease you can't afford, and you'll be fine. And then it's just about ebbing and flowing. And then again, so it's all about basically a business, as long as you don't screw up the finances, it's just about not burning out, and longevity, you win. And so I've really reminded myself of that. And then the last note, back to kind of that 70-hour thing, is I'm a big proponent, and the mantra I tell myself when I'm dealing with shit that I don't want to deal with, which happens all the time, is work like most won't so you can live like most can't. I am very self-aware of the lifestyle I've been able to have and all the cool shit I've done in my 38 years, and the not just the lack of stress in terms of like my kids will have whatever they need, like things are fine, but also like I want to go explore this. I want to go try this thing out. I want to have this thing. Like thankfully, again, personal bills, not an issue. Whatever the fuck I want to do, I can probably do. I am very thankful I can do that, and I am now very aware that some of that has come from the fact that I outwork most people, and I'm going to keep doing that because the reward is worth it.
Dude, brilliant. Thank you for that. So you're a visionary leader. So what's next for Hawke?
Yeah, it's really doubling. Like right now, I'd say it's more. We have all our pieces of Hawke. We have our team that services clients. We have our partnership team. We have our sales team. We have our marketing team. We have our HR team, et cetera. And we're very clear now of like, we want to be the predominant small and medium business, mid-market, growth market, whatever you want to call it, agency partner. We are your outsourced CMO marketing team, and I want to make this big. So now it's basically focusing on all of those pieces and how are we completely optimizing that piece of the business so that we solve that problem, so that we're the best at what we do and easy to work with. And it's honestly, we just had our offsite a week ago. Yeah, a week and a half ago. It's a whole list of things that are more like things we need to tweak in the business and certain leadership that we needed and like a lot of like functional things that we're changing right now. The overall business is doing great and we are servicing the way we want to service. Like there's the general gist of it is great. I always say like compared to other agencies, we're an AA plus. But internally we're a 6 out of 10. So I'm now trying to get that 6 to a 7 and like make all these incremental changes that push us in that direction of what we're trying to accomplish here and how we're going to actually get there. And so that's on the sales side. What does an SMB focused sales team look like? It is different than enterprise. And so looking at all these pieces and starting to pull from different industries to really get to that next phase.
Is there, and you could refuse to answer this, is there a North Star or a BHAG that once you achieve it, you know that you've stretched yourself to wherever it is that you wanted to stretch yourself? So is it a billion dollar market cap? Is it a no?
No, because it's. So I went to a really alternative school growing up that was like anti-competition, which was super interesting. But it's founded by an Indian philosopher. The school is called Oak Grove, and so I was brought up not competing with other people, which got me to want to compete with myself. And so what drives me is I want to do better than last year. So the only time I think that I'm going to like achieve that is when I go, I've hit the limit, and I don't think that there's enough growth here to do the next thing. Which I don't know how that exists with the way the world grows. But at some point, maybe I'll get there or I'll have been there, done that, time for a CEO for this thing. But it's, again, I don't think, this is a weird way to put it because I look at wealth as a scoreboard, not as like, oh, I have wealth, but it's like more like that's my top score. And I talked to my friend about this. I think the day I die will be the richest day of my life because I want to just keep building and growing and building and growing. And I don't think I'll retire. And so I think that will be part of it as we expand Hawke and we look at different things. It goes back to I want to be in the sandbox, trying new things and expanding and continuing to bring in great executives to take over the stuff that I've built so I can keep growing. What does that look like this year? I could tell you the rest of this year, but honestly, I don't have that much of a crisp 5 years from now. No idea.
Dude, that's fair. Final question. What's one truth about entrepreneurship or M&A you believe that most people simply just don't get?
Entrepreneurship or M&A? Entrepreneurship, I think most people don't get the difference of never being able to turn it off, that it is always going to be, there's always a fire, that there is no finish line, that there is no day that you can just offload it. And the idea of like, I'm going to hire a team that's going to run my company for me, that works 1% of the time. And the other 99%, it collapses the business. So like, as long as you own your business and you're running it, like you're running it. And that means you're dealing with the problems no one else could solve or no one wanted to solve. And it's all piling up to you. And that is part of what you're signing up for. And I think anyone that is an entrepreneur sees a day where that it's a finish line, where it's like, oh, we'll hire a head of legal and then they're going to deal with all the lawsuits, or we're going to hire a head of HR and they're going to deal with all the people. It's like, you're always going to be the one that cares the most. And you're going to always have to deal with this stuff. No one's ever going to just do it on their behalf. And that's even with great executives. I think that, and anyone that doesn't do entrepreneurship, I think sees the lifestyle of entrepreneurs and goes, oh, they're just rich CEOs and they don't have to deal with shit. And it's like, do it yourself then.
Well, dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Wish you nothing but Godspeed and success with Hawke and in all you do, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's a wrap on episode 12 with Erik Huberman, and that conversation delivered exactly what I expected: fast, direct, and packed with insights you can't get anywhere else. Erik made one thing crystal clear: scaling an agency isn't just about adding clients. It's about building systems, creating predictable revenue streams, and knowing when to say no. His roll-up strategy isn't theoretical. It's happening right now and reshaping agency exits. The biggest takeaway: whether you're building to sell or building to scale, execution beats strategy every single time. If this episode hit different, Here's what I need you to do. Subscribe to the Legacy Advisors podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. While you're there, leave us a review. They help us reach more entrepreneurs. Head over to legacyadvisors.io and grab our free M&A checklist. It's the same 20-point framework I've shared with top entrepreneurs around the world. And if you're serious about your exit strategy, pick up the Entrepreneur's Exit Playbook, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook that I narrated myself. Follow us on LinkedIn at Legacy M&A Advisors and Facebook at Legacy Advisors Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to episode 12. I'm Chris Jones. We'll see you next time.